Coming up on Network Africa. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says the international community should stand by until the government of Ethiopia submits its request for assistance in the ongoing Tigray crisis. The UN humanitarian agency says 42,000 people have been displaced in Somalia by the tropical cyclone Gati. Plus, the former president of Niger, Mamadou Tanja, dies at the age of 82. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. We begin today in Ethiopia, where Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has asked the international community to stand by until the government of Ethiopia submits its request for assistance in the ongoing Tigray crisis. The Prime Minister, who says the country appreciates the concerns of the international community, also adds that the country rejects any interference in its internal affairs. Mr. Abiy also asks the international community to respect the fundamental principles of non-intervention under international law. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is deeply concerned about the situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region and support efforts by the African Union to de-escalate the situation. That's according to UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric. Mr. Guterres has also called for the protection of civilians ahead of a threat by the Ethiopian army to start an assault on the region's capital, Mekelle. A deadline set by the government for fighters in the region to surrender is due to expire today.
Following the reports of a possible military action around Mekelle with great alarm. The Secretary General is very, very concerned about the impact that will have on civilian population, on our ability to deliver humanitarian aid in an area where it is also almost impossible to do so. And I must add that we have been in touch. We've been fully supportive of the African Union's leading role in trying to diffuse this situation.
The United Nations has warned that aggressive rhetoric risks placing civilians in grave danger in Ethiopia's Tigray region, where the conflict has sent tens of thousands fleeing to Sudan. Just in the space of 3 weeks, the UNHCR says Ethiopian refugees has passed 40,000. Also, the UN has been unable to send food and other desperately needed supplies into Tigray since fighting began.
Philemon says he never expected to be a refugee, but thousands of Ethiopians like him continue to flee across Sudan's border with the conflict-hit Tigray region.
We never expected to be a refugee. We never expected to see those shelters. We never expected. Everyone never expected for these things, because we were in a very safe condition. We were in our developing. You know, everyone trying to have family. Everyone works. Everyone studies. Some of them work is help family. We never expected to be a refugee. We never expected. I can tell you for sure, 100%.
The UNHCR says that the number of refugees in Sudan had now passed 40,000, including 5,000 who escaped fighting at the weekend, and relocating them has been a problem.
We have a challenge. It is mainly relocating the refugees. The process, the trip takes more than 15 hours from this reception center to the Umrakuba camp in Gadaref State. So it is a lot of work we do.
Philemon says the situation he finds himself in is challenging, but at least he feels safe.
If we were in our city, it would be very, very, very dangerously. So right now here, at least we are safe. At least we are safe. We didn't hear any kind of explosion. We didn't hear any kind of weapons. We are here very safe. actually. But actually, there's a lot of challenge right here because when we're trying to escape, we didn't take any kind of luggage or baggage. We just only escape, and we have no any kind of blanket and something carpet because we are just only scared and trying to escape to Sudani, to Hamdai.
Reports from inside Tigray are difficult to verify, especially because communication lines have been cut off. A deadline from the Ethiopian government to the Tigrayan authorities to surrender expires on Wednesday. However, TPLF fighters say they will not back down as they are ready to die in defense of their land. On Tuesday, the UN's Office of the High Commissioner for Refugees expressed alarm at a build-up of tanks around the regional capital, Mekelle.
The highly aggressive rhetoric on both sides regarding the fight for Mekelle is dangerously provocative, and it risks placing already vulnerable and frightened civilians in grave danger.
Shemdasani said the High Commissioner was worried such rhetoric would lead to further violations of international humanitarian law.
Let's get more on this story from VOA's Simon Marks, who joins us live from Ethiopia. Simon, with the deadline so close, what's the latest on the fighting in Tigray?
Well, today there's been very little news actually out of Mekelle. Reports coming from aid workers inside the city reported to me earlier that it's largely peaceful, but that residents in Mekelle were starting to leave the city to more rural areas in order to seek safety. Obviously, the Prime Minister's 72-hour deadline for the TPLF to surrender is now due in about 1 more hour, I think, 1 or 2 hours. So everyone in Ethiopia is essentially waiting for that to drop and to see what the army does, and if there is if there's any incursion on the city this evening.
Well, we've heard reports that there is an ethnic dimension to this crisis, as some police officers in Ethiopia have been disarmed because of their ethnicity. How true is this?
Yeah, well, I think what you're referring to, I think, is the Tigray officers that were involved in the AMISOM peacekeeping force in Somalia. And there have been very credible reports from both officials in the African Union and diplomats that those officers have been confined to their barracks and disarmed. What's a bit unclear at the moment is what's happened to them, where they are, how they're being treated. AMISOM itself has been very quiet about it, as has the AU. So, yeah, clearly, from the Ethiopian government's point of view, there has been an effort, I think, to ensure that Tigray members of the army are controlled in some way.
You know, there is a lot of questions up in the air at the moment, especially with little access to the situation on ground. What plan does the government have to bring back thousands of refugees who have fled the fights in Tigray?
Yeah, so a number of days ago, the Prime Minister did say that his plan was to bring back refugees that have fled to Sudan and welcome them and reintegrate them into the Tigray region once the conflict has stopped. So far, we've seen no real concrete plans put on the table to actually implement that. If anything, the number of refugees going into Sudan is only increasing. And aid workers in Ethiopia actually say that many other internally displaced people, both within Tigray, seeking shelter there in schools and universities. There's other people fleeing to the east into the Afar region. The numbers there are a bit uncertain at the moment, but clearly any reintegration process is probably a long way off, and I think the government's going to have to wait until there's peace before that happens.
All right then, Simon, lots to keep our eyes on in Ethiopia. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa, and do stay safe.
Thank you.
Moving on, at least 10 Kenyans have been arrested and taken to neighboring Ethiopia as tensions escalate in the border between the two countries. Locals in Moyale town in Kenya say heavily armed Ethiopian soldiers crossed the border into Kenya, ransacked neighborhoods before arresting the youths. The soldiers accused the 10 of sheltering members of the Al-Shain group, which has been blamed for a series of attacks and killings in western and southern Ethiopia. Residents allege Kenyan security officers looked on as the young men were dragged away across the border. Neither the Kenyan nor the Ethiopian government have made any comments on this alleged incursion into Kenyan territory. The UN's humanitarian agency says 42,000 people have been displaced in Somalia by the tropical cyclone Gati. The agency says roads have been blocked as a result of the flooding and aid is unable to get to the people affected. Cyclone Gati hit coastal part of northern Somalia on Sunday. The UN agency says authorities in Puntland State estimate that the cyclone may have directly or indirectly affected 180,000 people. Over in South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the recent spate of attacks on foreign drivers that has seen dozens of lorries torched or damaged. Groups representing lorry drivers have been holding demonstrations to protest against the hiring of foreign drivers. On Tuesday, police in Gauteng, South Africa's financial hub, arrested some of those allegedly involved in the attacks. President Ramaphosa says the mindless and bloody lawlessness cannot be tolerated. He also directed the ministers in charge of transport and labor to investigate the attack and submit a report. Human Rights Watch Southern African director has termed the attack as xenophobic. Betty Dibia, our South Africa Bureau Chief, joins us now for more on this. Hello, Betty. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Jenny. Same here.
What are we seeing playing out in South Africa with these attacks on foreign drivers? I mean, not long ago, was there an anti-foreigners protest that was asking for foreigners to go back to their country?
Well, that protest you're referring to 2 weeks ago, and then on Monday as well, some of the truck drivers associations, they were part of that protest as well, and they went to the harbor saying that no foreign driver should be employed or to be allowed to operate by the 1st of December this year, especially at the harbor. But again, this is something that's been rumbling for a long time. It's not just now, but the loss is to the country. And they're saying the All Truck Drivers Forum, which are local drivers, are saying that employers are employing mostly foreign nationals while they are there instead of the locals, and that it's not acceptable and that government should do something. And some of the officials, the government officials, have said you can protest, you can lay your issues, but do not take the laws into your hands. Those trucks, in the last 1 week, we've lost about 29, 30 trucks. And each truck is about 1.5, 1.7 million rand. Multiply that by 30, you'll get the figure for one truck in Naira. So they're complaining, but then again, as the Road Freight Association, which is mostly owners of these trucks, they're saying the government should intervene and that some of the drivers being attacked are actually locals, because the attackers usually petrol bomb the trucks and they attack the drivers. And in most cases, they don't ask, where is your ID? We have a case of a young man, 45-year-old, from Pinetown in KwaZulu-Natal, who drove his truck to Gauteng, and his body was found shot and burnt up to a point not too far from his truck, and the truck was set alight. 2 people escaped this morning, Wednesday morning, when their own truck was attacked as well. So it's a problem. The country is losing, and then the foreign nationals, who are some of the truck drivers, are also scared. Remember, some of these truck drivers drive to other neighboring countries as well. And it could be trucks from other countries coming in to take goods. This is a producing country. And then those taking goods from here to other countries as well.
Oh, Betty, a really tragic situation. We do hope the authorities sort this out as soon as possible. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa. Still to come on the program. A boat carrying over 30 migrants capsizes near the Canary Islands in the Atlantic. Details in a moment. Stay with us. Flags are flying at half-mast in South Africa and will be so for 5 days as the country observes a mourning period for those who lost their lives owing to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as gender-based violence. More than 20,000 people have died of COVID-19 related complications in South Africa, which is the worst-hit country on the continent so far, and the numbers have begun to rise again. South Africa has also flagged off 16 days of activism of no violence against women and children. After 22 years of marking this in the country, gender-based violence figures in the country remain high. Speaking at the flag-off of the mourning period today in Pretoria, Deputy President David Mbuza, referred to GBV as a second pandemic, adding that both pandemics can only be overcome if the nation worked collectively.
Gathered here to bow our heads and reflect on the new path ahead. We take this moment to commemorate and honor all those who have lost their lives as a result of COVID-19 and gender-based violence and femicide. This twin pandemic of COVID-19 and gender-based violence and femicide continue to engulf our nation on an unprecedented scale. We have had to work together as a nation to fight these pandemics so that we inspire hope and galvanize the nation towards a common vision of unity, cohesion, and a shared prosperity. As we share their grief, we call upon all our churches, our mosques, our temples, synagogues, and houses of prayer to hold prayer sessions to support surviving families to cope with the loss of their loved ones. Their loss is our loss as a nation. Even in such moments of sorrow and hardship, we are a nation that has time and again risen from all forms of adversity. As we mourn, we are reminded of our collective obligation to make a difference in every way we can in our various leadership roles in society.
As Rwanda struggles to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, all of government collaboration led by the country's president and adherence to WHO guidance and the fundamentals of outbreak control have been the hallmarks of the country's COVID-19 response. Officials say investments in emergency preparedness and health system strengthening have also helped Rwanda confront COVID-19.
The whole policy of preventing this disease, starting by preventive measures, individual preventive measures, wearing of masks, hand sanitizing or hand washing, social distancing, all of these measures were implemented as recommended by WHO, by the Ministry of Health, with the entire community involved in the prevention of COVID-19. They supported us in setting a strong surveillance system. Some of their epidemiologists were part of our teams to ensure that we can test, we can trace any contact, and we can report properly those either confirmed cases or suspected people until the contrary is proven.
A boat carrying more than 30 migrants is capsized near the Canary Islands in the Atlantic. At least 4 people died in the accident that happened late on Tuesday. The Spanish authorities say 28 people have been rescued so far and a search operation is ongoing. The past months have seen increasing numbers of migrants trying to reach the Canaries, the EU territory nearest to Northwest Africa. The former president of Niger, Mamadou Tanja, has died at the age of 82. He governed from 1999 to 2010 when he was overthrown in a coup after trying to stay in power beyond a 2-term limit. He was then jailed after being accused of corruption but was released a year later when all charges against him were dropped. Afrobeat musician Emerson Bokarie is singing for a better Sierra Leone. The musician and activist is no stranger to controversy. His outspoken music has meant he's received death threats from all ends of the country's political spectrum over 2 decades and 3 successive governments.
Emerson Bokarie is a musician and activist on a mission. Finally back in his home country of Sierra Leone, after a 4-year stay in Nigeria, he's no stranger to controversy. His music has made him a target of both ruling and opposition party supporters. His latest album, 9 Lives, was released in August and tackles issues of corruption, tribalism and partisanship.
We've been crying for 59 years. We deserve better. Whatever is happening between the political parties, it's not our concern. Their fights, it's not our concern. All we are asking for is a better Sierra Leone. We are asking whatever it takes for them to sit on that round table, talk the politics, talk and understand themselves for the betterment of all Sierra Leoneans.
Bokarie's lyrics have not shared away from the issues, and he's even been sent death threats because of them. In one track called Coconut or Coconut Head, Bokarie sings, regardless of who's in power, there'll be no change because they know we've made a strong decision to be blindly partisan.
I do not want people to go through the same things that I went through. Like, I suffered as a kid, you know, growing up as a kid, and it hurts my heart. It pains me to see little kids wake up in the morning before they go to school. They will have to walk like miles to go fetch water, and it's heart-rending for me. You know, this is the 21st century. For God's sake, we're not asking for the world. We're just asking for basic amenities like pipe-borne water.
His Afrobeat message is one that says that although power may shift hands, nothing changes for the poor in Sierra Leone as long as corrupt and incompetent officials continue to be elected.
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale.